Einen schönen guten Abend. Ich darf Sie und euch alle recht herzlich bei uns im Volkshaus begrüßen zu unserer Dialog- und Diskussionsveranstaltung Der Weg zum Frieden in Palästina und Israel. Schön, dass Sie alle gekommen sind, so zahlreich. Es freut mich besonders, auch viele unbekannte Gesichter zu sehen. Mein Name ist Miriam Herlitschka. Ich darf uns und euch heute durch den Abend begleiten. Und ganz besonders begrüßen möchte ich unseren Gast Aida Touma-Suleiman. Sie ist heute hier auf unserer Einladung der KPÖ und der jüdisch-arabischen Initiative Standing Together. Und sie ist heute hier, um mit uns über das Ende des Krieges in Gaza, die Freilassung aller Geiseln und einen Weg zu einem friedlichen Leben in Israel und Palästina zu sprechen. Bitte. Bevor wir beginnen, möchte ich euch unseren Gast auch noch kurz vorstellen. Sie ist eine israelisch-arabische Psychologin, sie ist Parlamentsabgeordnete der linksorientierten Chadasch-Partei und Mitglied des Politbüros der Kommunistischen Partei Israels. Sie ist bestimmt eine der prominentesten feministischen Politikerinnen und Aktivistinnen in der palästinensischen und israelischen Gesellschaft. Zusätzlich ist sie auch noch die Gründerin von Frauen gegen Gewalt. Das war der erste Verein, der Unterkünfte und Callcenter für arabische Opfer sexueller Gewalt und Übergriffe eröffnete. Mit ihr werden wir heute das schwierige Thema Frieden in Israel und Gaza besprechen und diskutieren. Ich möchte euch noch einen kurzen Einblick liefern, wie der Abend verlaufen wird. Wir werden in etwa 1,5 Stunden Zeit haben. Ich würde euch auch bitten, Rücksicht auf Aida zu nehmen. Sie ist heute schon wirklich den ganzen Tag auf den Beinen und auch am Sprechen mit vielen, vielen Menschen. Zunächst einmal werde ich ihr ein paar Fragen stellen, die ich für sie vorbereitet habe, und sie wird uns hier sicher gerne antworten. Und danach werden wir eine Publikumsrunde machen oder 2, je nachdem, wie es die Zeit noch zulässt. So, herzlich willkommen, Aida, bei uns im Volkshaus. Ich habe ein paar Fragen, wie gesagt, vorbereitet. Und der liebe Bernhard wird uns hier übersetzen nebenbei. Die erste Frage, die ich vorbereitet habe: Wir haben hier in der medialen Information in Österreich über die politischen Verhältnisse in Israel oft ein sehr eingeschränktes und einseitiges Bild, das uns vermittelt wird. Was uns interessieren würde: Können Sie uns einen kurzen Einblick in die politische Situation in Israel geben und auch etwas über die Arbeit der Kommunistischen Partei, die Situation der Kommunistischen Partei in Israel geben und auch über die parlamentarische Arbeit?
Good evening, everybody. Allow me first to thank each one of you for honoring me to come and to listen, and I think also being here is an act of solidarity, which we appreciate very much. So thank you for coming. Even if not everything that I'm going to say might be understood or agreed upon, but the fact that you came is very important. And allow me to thank the Communist Party for hosting me and giving me the opportunity to meet Austrian people who care about our situation back home. The question was about the situation in Israel and the status or the position of the Communist Party that I'm part of, and Chadasch-Partei, which we have to clarify that it is the only party in Israel that is a Jewish Arab Palestinian together struggling for peace, equality, justice. I have to say also that our party, the Communist Party, is the most veteran party, the oldest party that was even established before Nakba, before the establishment of the State of Israel. So we are one of the oldest parties, very unique of having Jews and Arabs struggling together. I'm saying this because, as you know, it's being a communist is a difficult thing in our world by itself. Adding to this, acting in a very capitalist society, in a society where the national issue and the national affiliation is very hard, and there is a continuous occupation of the state I'm citizen of to the people I'm part of. I'm Palestinian, and I'm citizen of Israel, and I'm a communist, and on top of all of that, I'm a feminist, so you can imagine. We have been saying for in the last 2 decades that for our regret, the society in Israel and the political map in Israel is shifting very much to the right, to the extreme right, even before this war. And we have to be clear also that for the first time in Israel, there is a full right-wing government with components that are considered to be fascist parties inside that government. In the first 6 months of last year, the whole Israeli society, or the majority of the Israeli society, was facing the threats of what was called the judicial reform. Actually, it was a coup against the regime, changing the rest of what is left from democratic pillars into a very oppressive government, and trying to smash down the judicial system inside Israel. That situation created protests that was going on every Saturday, every weekend, with hundreds of thousands of people, mainly Jewish, going out to the streets, trying to protect what they called the Israeli democracy. I'm saying this because some of the international community looked at that protest from outside and thought that here the majority of Israel is struggling for democracy. This was not the situation, because we as communists, we as parliamentarians, politicians, leadership understand democracy in a different way, and we were warning at that point that there is no way that democracy, real democracy, exists while a continuous occupation of another people is still continuing. We believe that the protest should also speak very frankly about the continuous occupation and oppression of the Palestinians. That if you are struggling for democracy, you cannot ignore the fact that this democracy is discriminating against 22% of the citizens of Israel, who are the Palestinian citizens of Israel. But the defenders of democracy in the streets refuse to talk about occupation, refuse to talk about discrimination, refuse to talk about apartheid that is existing inside Israel, because it's a controversial issue. And we need to unite everybody to defend the democracy. That was their claim, and we did not agree to that. Yes, we are struggling for democracy, but we are struggling for real democracy, equality, justice for all. I'm saying this because this is the background that existed inside Israel. People who wanted to struggle for mainly democracy for Jews. That was the democracy that existed. Wanted to ignore the Palestinian issue, wanted to ignore the occupation, and thought that there is a possibility to create security, democracy, prosperity inside Israel by ignoring the Palestinian issue and the fact that there are people who are deprived of freedom and of dignity under the control of the Israeli system. Hamas attack on the 7th of October was not only a surprise, not only a very horrifying situation or attack, it was also a slap on the face of those who claimed that there is a possibility to create security for one side of the equation. The 1,200 people, Israelis, who were killed on the 7th of October, the high number of hostages that were taken, including children, women, and young men, was a terrible reminder for everybody that there is a core issue, a more fundamental issue that cannot be ignored when you are struggling for a better future, not only for the Israelis, but for the two people, the Palestinians and the Israeli Jews and Palestinians. The fact that we had the most extremist government ruling in Israel made the reaction very, very aggressive, and the war launched on Gaza that day. We, from day one, said it very clearly that we demand to get all the civilians out of the bloodshed circle. If it is Israelis or Palestinians, civilians should not pay the price of atrocities or military actions.
Bereits seit dem ersten Tag haben wir gesagt, dass wir wollen, dass die gesamte Zivilbevölkerung aus diesem Blutvergießen herausgehalten werden sollte, dass sie praktisch aus dieser blutigen Auseinandersetzung herausgehalten werden sollte.
And we demanded immediate release of all hostages. And we adopted what was said by the families of the Israeli hostages, free hostages, all for all. And by political means, we stood against the war from day one. And we were the only political party who stood up and said it very clearly, no military solution, only political solution.
Danke, Aida, für die Beantwortung meiner ersten Frage. Und ich möchte da auch gleich eine Nachfrage, die mir auch in Vorbereitung auf diesen Abend immer wieder gestellt wurde, stellen. Und so wie du gerade ausgeführt hast, verurteilt ihr die Handlungen der Hamas und verurteilt ihr alle militärischen Handlungen und stellt eine politische und diplomatische Lösung in den Vordergrund. Dennoch wird euch ja als kommunistische Partei und als Parlamentarier vorgeworfen, ihr würdet Terroristen unterstützen. Wie geht ihr mit diesem Vorwurf um und auch wie ist eure Position zu terroristischen Organisationen?
Okay, so you heard that I'm a terrorist supporter.
Also Sie haben gehört, dass ich Terroristen unterstütze.
I think I was very clear about what I said. We were always against bringing civilians into any military action or into a blood circle. We are very clear when we say it, we don't mean only Palestinian civilians because they are under occupation. We mean also Israeli civilians. I still remember in the second week of the war on Gaza, I stood on the podium of the Knesset and I said, a child is a child is a child, whether he is an Israeli or Palestinian. And the answer came from the plenary. MKs were shouting at me, saying, don't compare our children to their children. There is no symmetry. The children of Gaza brought it on themselves. Let's start by asking, what is terrorism? And what is terror, and who define what is terror? I'm saying this because I have principles that I talked about hurting or killing or kidnapping civilians. But on the other hand, in the history of all people in the world, when you under occupation, you have the right to defend yourself from occupation. And only those who are under occupation decide how to do it. I might observe it and say what I think about those practices, but I'm not the one to decide. I am against continuous occupation. If this is supporting terror, I don't know what does you mean by terror. I am against oppressing other people. And you have to be also cautious of the fact, I'm citizen of Israel, I'm citizen of a state that is occupying my people. And I usually measure my steps and my positions by my package of morals and human values. This is how I decide what is my position. So I say that crimes were committed on the 7th of October. But why we are not talking also about the continuous crimes that are committed since the 8th of October till today? Why we are not talking about the massacres, about 34,000, even more, Palestinians, among them 14,000 children who were killed, bombed. More than 20,000 orphan Palestinian children are now in Gaza. Don't talk to me with the language of terror. Ask me what I think also about that. I won't be neither a communist or a human being if I don't say stop this war and stop the crimes that are committed now. I feel for every mother who loses her child. I'm a mother too. And I don't want to put myself in the place of a mother who knows that her son or her daughter or her husband is a hostage on the other side where bombs are dropped every day and destruction is existing everywhere. I don't want even to think how would I feel. It is horrible, but I won't be a human being if I don't think about the Gazan mothers also who are losing their children, who are burying their children, who are looking for a drop of clean water to give to their children. I don't understand, to tell you the truth, how the world can feel the pain of one side and ignore the pain on the other side. Aren't we all human beings? Aren't we all deserve to live? Aren't we all deserve for dignity, for freedom? I am not the hypocritic person here. I'm very clear about my morals. I'm talking for the benefit of two sides. And yes, of course, I'm a little bit biased. Not because I'm a Palestinian, but because the Palestinians are those who are under occupation. And aren't we supposed to stand near all the oppressed all over the world as communists? That's what I'm doing.
Danke, Aida, für diese klaren und deutlichen und auch schmerzhaften Worte. Das zeigt auch immer wieder, dass klare Worte zu finden jetzt nicht immer die einfachste Sache auszusprechen ist. Danke, dass du es trotzdem immer wieder tust und auch heute uns daran teilhaben hast lassen. Und eine Frage, die ich jetzt noch gerne dir stellen würde, ist, wie außerhalb der parlamentarischen Wahrnehmung, wie geht die israelische Öffentlichkeit und die Zivilbevölkerung mit dem Krieg und den menschenrechtswidrigen Verhältnissen in Gaza um?
Well, you have to understand that the majority of the Israeli society is led by this crazy fascist government that is not, first of all, is not telling them the truth about what is happening. And I'm not going to be easy because the Israeli young people are going to the army. They are serving, they are bombing, they are there in Gaza. They see what is happening. You have to understand, only listening to MKs and ministers in the beginning of the war, saying it very clearly, flat Gaza, drop a nuclear weapon. There is no innocent people in Gaza. We should eradicate everybody there. That was out there. Everybody heard it. Those who go to Gaza know what is happening to Gaza. I'm telling you, the Israeli media don't show the reality. Don't show what is the suffering of the Gazan people. There was a report about how the army decided to attack a suspected person in Gaza of being a Hamas. And they said it very clearly. Even if there is a suspected person in a building, and there is another 200 people in that building, the easiest way is to drop tons of bombs and just get rid of that person. Whatever other casualties you say, this is the price. This is not a war. This is, and I know that horrible wars happened. And in wars, horrible things happened, usually. But in those measures, in such a policy, you have to understand, this government is leading a war not to secure the citizens of Israel. Maybe you will say it's a revenge war. This is a strategic war for Netanyahu's government. This is a war that is led by an ideology to create what they call the Greater Israel. It's not by chance that 12 ministers and 23 MKs attended a conference calling for settling in Gaza. This is the vision, this is the ideology. So that's why they have to hide some facts. That's why they have to incite the community, building over the true fears. Yes, people are afraid after the 7th of October, like the Gazan people are afraid now. But if you are a leadership that is taking your citizens and the other people hostages for your ideology, this is dangerous. And this is not securing your citizens, this is endangering your citizens. You have to know that everyone that is talking the truth is persecuted now in Israel. I will give you a personal example. On the beginning of November, I saw a report in a British TV showing testimonies of physicians from a Shifa hospital speaking how there are bombs on the hospital and that they lost some of their medical staff, and they said that we smell phosphor in the air. I quoted those testimonies on my X account. I tweeted part of those testimonies, warning where the Israeli government is heading with this war. In 24 hours, there were 2,500 complaints against me to the ethics committee in the parliament. The ethics committee had an immediate meeting and decided to suspend me from the Knesset for 2 months. They didn't care that the next day, Haaretz wrote it as a headline that the hospital, Shifa hospital, is bombed. I was silenced inside the Knesset for 2 months, not allowed to participate in any meeting, not allowed to give speeches, not allowed to introduce any demand for a discussion in the Knesset. I was deprived of my right of speaking out against the government policy. I'm not complaining here. This is part of my duty, to speak up in the difficult times. This is why I'm in politics. But arresting 450 of our citizens because they wrote a post, because they said something against the war. Physicians, Arab physicians were dismissed from work because they were saying that what is happening also in Gaza is horrible. I just want to say that I do not believe anybody when he or she says, we don't know. They are not giving us information. This is not true. Each one of you sitting here in Austria can know what is happening in Gaza. What really scares me is that if I don't believe that they don't know, what scares me is why they are quiet. This is what should worry us. Why, not only in Israel, but in the world, many people are watching what is happening and still quiet about it.
Danke, Aida. Da möchte ich auch gleich mit meiner letzten Frage einhaken, die ich dir jetzt stellen werde, weil es ist ja bekannt, was passiert, so wie du es gerade ausgeführt hast. Und siehst du da eine Möglichkeit, dass dieser Krieg zu beenden ist? Oder was ist aus deiner Sicht auch auf internationaler Ebene notwendig, um zumindest einen Waffenstillstand zu erreichen?
Well, those 2 days we are waiting very hopefully that the negotiations for an agreement for exchange of hostages will happen. Hopefully today, tomorrow, we will hear the news. And I truly hope that there will be such an agreement, because everybody understands now, even in the Israeli army and the Israeli politicians, that the only way to get back the hostages is ceasefire and stopping this bloody war. I really hope that we will see at least that this horrific massacre stops right now. The hostages go back, the Palestinian prisoners free, and immediate political process should start. There is no way, you know, all the people who fought for their freedom, you know, Nelson Mandela was called a terrorist, by the way. And eventually, when they understood that the only solution is by political negotiation, they sat down with Nelson Mandela and with others, and that's how people got their freedom. I truly hope that any political process, now the world understands that if there is a case, you know, the same world that didn't want to hear about Palestine, today is talking about the two-state solution. Biden, who wanted peace between Arabia Saudi and Israel and thought that will solve the problem, understand that he cannot bypass the Palestinian issue. And the occupation should stop. You know, the world now understands those courageous students who are fighting now, struggling in the United States, in France, in many other places, understand that if you are struggling for justice, your address is Palestine. And in the past, they were shouting, "Free Palestine." Today, Palestine is freeing the whole world from oppression. The American students, when they are protesting, they are protesting also against the policy of their own country, not only solidarity with Palestine. And I think it's about time. Even if Biden is only, you know, saying whatever he is saying, and another person that I don't believe, even if he's saying whatever he is saying because of his election, if he is under pressure, if Netanyahu is under pressure because of the court's decisions, the International Criminal Court's decisions, this is the time to push more, not to rely back and say, okay, here Biden is talking about the two-state solution. Biden wants to get us to the situation that existed before. And we need now more to struggle in order to free mainly the Palestinians, but also the Israelis from being occupiers. As to the question, is there a possibility for a political solution after all of this blood? I will tell you what I told a security person who was arguing with me, an Israeli security person who was arguing with me, and who asked me the same question. Do you think there is a possibility, after all what happened, that we reach peace? I told him, listen, there are some lessons in history. And one of those lessons about the horrible Holocaust, there are two major lessons. You cannot liquidate people who are seeking and struggling for life. This is one. He said, you mean only the Jews? I said people, any people. People who are taking life, there is no way to beat them. Second, if the Israeli society can have friendly relationship with the Germans, all the miracles in the world can happen. Meaning, there is always possibility. Each one of us, if we are Austrian, American, Jews, Arabs, whatsoever, inside us, the basic need is to live in a secure situation, to raise our children, and to build a future better than ours for them. All of us are looking for that. When you give the people the opportunity to see that this dream can happen, they will go for it. We tried that in the first Intifada. We can criticize Oslo agreements, but they gave hope to people. And suddenly, the whole public opinion on both sides shifted. We thought at that time that we are ending the occupation. It turned out that we were illused. But this time, we learned the lesson. And we should look for the hope for people to accomplish their basic dream, living in freedom.
Puh, das war ein gewaltiger Abend. Ich möchte mich beim Bernie nochmal für seine Geduld und seine vorzügliche Übersetzung bedanken. Zum Abschluss, ich werde es kurz machen, aber ich möchte mir auch hier auch im Namen der KPÖ und der Veranstalter herausnehmen, genau das zu betonen, was ich bei meiner ersten Eingangsfrage auch schon versucht habe, von dir beantwortet zu bekommen. Das, was wir oft mitbekommen hier an medialer und politischem Diskurs zur Frage Gaza, Palästina, Israel und dem Krieg, ist so einseitig oft und sehr eingeschränkt und auch die Lösungsvorschläge, die auf dem Tisch liegen, nämlich dass es immer nur eine militärische Lösung geben kann, wird uns immer vorgegeben. Und heute haben wir gesehen, dass es Menschen in Israel gibt, die palästinensisch sind, dass es Menschen in Palästina gibt und auch bei uns, die sagen, nein, eine friedliche Lösung, einen Frieden können wir nie mit militärischen Mitteln erreichen. Das kann immer nur am Verhandlungstisch passieren. Und da möchte ich mich wirklich bei Aida bedanken, dass sie uns hier wirklich ihre Perspektiven, Einblicke in ihre Lebensrealität, privat, politisch und auch der Linken in Israel gezeigt hat, und möchte mich wirklich bedanken, dass du nicht aufgibst, weiterzusprechen, nicht aufgibst, weiterzukämpfen gegen Krieg, gegen Rassismus und für einen gerechten Frieden für alle.